Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Makbool with you at PTB World. In today's show, we will be taking a look at two very important topics. The first is in reference to what is happening in Kashmir for decades now. And of course, the suffering of the Kashmiri people unfortunately still continues. We keep on saying the number of hours, days and years that have passed by since 2019. But there is of course many more that have passed by since 1947 and perhaps earlier as well. And then of course we see that the struggle of these resilient and brave Kashmiri people still has no end. Unfortunately, there hasn't been any justice in terms of their right to self-determination, in terms of the UN Security Council resolutions. And of course, because of that, we still see that the people in Kashmir, after generations, are still continuing this struggle for their basic right of freedom and self-determination. We know that the 27th of October is going to be observed as Black Day in both the illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and of course Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Whereby, of course, this particular day is going to be observed to mark the Black Day on which India has occupied the illegal territory, and then, of course, with reference to this occupation, has continued to deteriorate and also incur upon the Kashmiri people numerous amounts of injustices and human rights violations that continue to this day. We unfortunately also know that even though that there are UN Security Council resolutions in place, there hasn't been much that has been done in terms of the kind of effort that is needed from the world community and from bodies such as the United Nations. Yesterday, there was also the 75th anniversary of the foundation day of the Azad government of Jammu and Kashmir, in which, of course, it was pledged that the government in Azad Jammu and Kashmir has always endeavored to work for its Kashmiri brethren. So, of course, has Pakistan, that has always extended the moral, diplomatic and political support to the people of Kashmir and raised the voice for the Kashmiri people at every platform. This has been done so for every year and every life, of course, to be accounted for. But unfortunately, the kind of draconian laws that we find in place, the kind of highly militarized zones that we see in the illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir has no end, and we haven't really seen any consequence for such actions taken by India, even after the unilateral steps of 2019. So that is what we're going to be talking about in our first segment and try to understand why nothing has happened so far. In our next segment, we're going to be taking a look at what has happened at home with reference to, unfortunately, the killing of a renowned journalist, Mr. Arshad Sharif. And of course, we're all very saddened and also need justice in this particular case. And we want to understand what really happened, and we want to be able to see the truth come out soon. The Prime Minister has tasked a judicial commission to be formed to probe the killing and has also said that the particular commission will be taking a look at all the facts and will be, of course, investigating this particular incident that happened at the hands of the Kenyan police. We also know that the Information Minister, Mariam Aurangzeb, has said that the head of the commission would be including members from the civil society and media fraternity. And separately, we also know that the Islamabad High Court particularly also said that the journalist community and members of this community should also be part of the investigations that take place. And this was particularly said by the Islamabad High Court Chief Justice, who said this is the sole reason he came to the court. This, of course, is important in terms of understanding how exactly we're going to be seeing this situation and this investigation evolve, how truthful we're going to be seeing in terms of the kind of work that is done, especially with the authorities in Kenya as well, and how soon we'll be able to find what has happened and, of course, provide the kind of solace that is needed to the family of the journalist as well. We also know that the mortal remains of Mr. Arshad Sharif will be coming in soon, and this has been tweeted by the wife as well, that this is what has happened, that her husband is returning, unfortunately, in a coffin, and that the Kenyan authorities are answerable to all of us. This, of course, is important in terms of how Pakistan is going to be taking this and also extending the protection to journalist community and protecting the rights and making sure that even in this case, this is done. And so, of course, this is an important case for all of us. For this and more, as always, I've been joined in the studios by senior analysts Farooq Matafi and Raja Faisal. And for our first segment on the Kashmir issue, we've been joined by Mr. Altaf Hussain Bani, who's a senior leader, APHC, Advocate Pervez Ahmed, representative all parties, Hurriyat Conference. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of the show today. Let me start with you, Mr. Altaf Hussain Bani. Considering what has happened for so many years, this is amazing to see that the people in Kashmir are still so resilient and so strong in the face of such atrocities. It is perhaps something that is unbelievable to the extent that is happening and the way that the world is deaf and blind towards it. It's important, of course, for us to be able to reiterate what has happened many, many years ago and to keep observing days such as the 27th of October and marking this in the history as well, and bringing this to light every year to the international community that this is what happened and this is what has been happening for so long. But tell me how it is that when we take a look at such important occasions and the way that we, of course, are raising the voice of the Kashmiri people themselves are, of course, continuing to suffer and still they are struggling for their basic rights. How is it that they can remain so strong in the face of such adversity?
Thank you very much. Basically, the aim to observe this day as Black Day every year from last 75 years and even today is to remind the international community of their commitments towards people of Kashmir, and also the way India invaded Kashmir illegally and immorally, took a part of Kashmir under its control, and then rushed to the United Nations, and United Nations passed resolutions and decided that the people of Kashmir will decide their future. And then thereafter, India started calling Kashmir as an integral part, and then started muzzling the people's resistance with brute force, which we have seen for last 75 years. More importantly, from last 33 years, the way India used its all armory against the peaceful resistance of people of Kashmir, and its militarization, its all draconian laws which they use, the killings of the people, the enforced disciplines, all that. But despite all this, the people continued their resistance. People continued to remind the international community of their commitments. But unfortunately, we have seen the international community at large remain mute spectator to this, what has been happening. And this encouraged India even further on August 5th, 2019, to dismember the state of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, make union territories, and then enact about more than 800 some new laws and some amended laws in Kashmir in order to make some demographic engineering there, political engineering, then putting curbs on freedom of expression and opinion, and doing all that what she could do in order to suppress the people's resistance in Kashmir. But people of
Hmm.
Kashmir, even at today, the leadership of Kashmir and the people in general remind the international community of their commitments towards the people of Kashmir. They are not coming to the terms of India. They will continue their fight against this occupation. That is why we observe this day as a Black Day, to remind international community of their commitments, and also to support our younger generation, to call on our young generation to continue this struggle against this illegal occupation.
Absolutely, and that's an important point that I want to talk further about. Advocate Pervez Saab, when we take a look at the importance of this struggle and, of course, the understanding of this struggle for the youth as well, there have been, of course, generations that have gone through this struggle. And since 1947 to this day, we, of course, had more people coming into this world, and they unfortunately have seen all of this, and that's perhaps all they know in terms of what is going on in the occupied territory. For them, how important it is for them to understand the history and the context of what actually happened, what their struggle means, what it is based on, what is the foundation, and how exactly will you be able to inculcate that spirit within the young generation within Kashmir to keep going forward, even though their ancestors and their fathers haven't really achieved what they've been trying to.
Thank you very much for giving me the time. If we have a cursory glance on the pages of the history, it is very much clear to every Kashmiri that in 1947, when this subcontinent was divided, when it was under the British colony, at that time the Jammu and Kashmir was a princely state, and rather we can say it was a sovereign state. It has its own constitution, it has its own set of laws, it has its sovereignty, and however, it is very unfortunate that on 14th and 15th of August, two countries who were the colonies of the Britishers were decolonized, and one sovereign country was colonized. And since then, just Wani has said that since then, people of Jammu and Kashmir have been struggling against Indian occupation by different means. And even I can quote that in 1987, the present leadership of all parties, Hurriyat Conference, uh, even participated in the elections, and they decided that they will get this dispute resolved through ballot. But India rigged these elections, and the people of Jammu and Kashmir were forced to pick the bullets against the Indian occupation. And Wani said since then that people are being killed and black laws are being made applicable to Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. But you can I will just give an example that in 2016, India has created a narrative that after the
Yeah.
Burhan Wani was martyred, that before his martyrdom, that everything is over, Kashmir is calm, there is no freedom movement, and no people are sitting in their homes. But after Burhan Wani's martyrdom, we have seen that there was a radical change in Kashmir, Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And since then, the people of Jammu and Kashmir, especially youth of Jammu and Kashmir, when they saw that their space have been choked by India, that they are not being allowed to assemble against Indian occupation, they are not even uh, allowed to resist. And we have seen the youth of occupied Jammu and Kashmir pick the arms again, and they started their movement against the Indian occupation. We have
Right. Right.
another statement I will just quote. The Rawat, the former chief of the Indian Army, has said in 2019 that we have the total number of the freedom fighters in occupied Jammu and Kashmir not more than 250. But and they have started the operation all out. But since then, we have seen hundreds of youth have been martyred, and that number still exists. And people of Jammu and Kashmir every day a new youth. Neither he has any support from any country in shape of arms or ammunition, but they still stand against the occupation. They take the position once our any freedom fighter gets martyrdom, another one takes the flag and carries this movement forward. So we don't need to inculcate this moment in the minds of the youth. They are
All
well
right.
aware.
Very
They
true.
All
have
right.
they have been born in this
Absolutely.
atmosphere.
Yes.
They have seen how
Yes.
India is behaving with them.
Yeah, you're very right, Pervez Saab. You're very right about it. And of course, Wani Saab, I wanted to obviously ask you if we talk about 1947, exactly at that time, if we look at how Kashmir was being ruled by obviously the British, they were supposed to give them security, defense was in their hands, plus their foreign policy of Kashmir was in their hands because obviously it was a state that was working under the British at that time. Don't you think that we really need to highlight this fact in front of the British right now as well? And in past, I know that they have been highlighted, but still the outcome did not come. But now, of course, we need to involve them as a party because at that time they were supposed to do something which they didn't do. I'm talking about defending people of Kashmir and defending Kashmir as a state. Could you please highlight this fact that whatever British at that time didn't do, then later on, when they supposed to be part of some kind of solution in which they ensure that the duty they had at their own part, which they were supposed to play, they did not play. They must ensure that some kind of solution is brought in Kashmir so that people of Kashmir know that they have accomplished their duty.
And can we actually even talk about this with the community in Britain at this moment in time? Because can we even hold them accountable, or can we even actually have some sort of result coming out from there, since we don't even have that from international bodies like the UN?
Of course, when
You are talking to Parveen Sab or me?
Wani Saab.
Yeah. Or actually, but when we see 1947, but the responsibility the Britishers had, unfortunately, they did not fulfill their responsibility towards the people of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, or for that purpose, the people of Jammu and Kashmir. People of Kashmir were ruled by an authoritarian ruler, the Maharaja of Kashmir. The people of Kashmir had their own struggle against the Maharaja of Kashmir, against for their political and civil rights. And unfortunately, the Britishers, the Indian Congress, and all others at the British Viceroy at that time, and Congress leadership and all that, they hatched a conspiracy, the result of which we are witnessing at this point of time. Where in 1947, when the Indian troops landed in Kashmir and the people of Kashmir resisted against that, and we saw the liberation of Azad Kashmir. And when the people of Kashmir were taking more and more area in their control, the Indians went to the United Nations, and then they got unfortunately, that was the unfortunate period that we had a ceasefire at that time, and because of that ceasefire, till now the people in Indian occupied Kashmir are reading under the clutches of the Indian slavery. That is what the Britishers did not do their responsibility at that time. British were the powerful people at that time. They could have done, but unfortunately, after the World War II, you see, what is United Nations? What was the League of Nations? Unfortunately, these United Nations are formed in charter. We see they are formed for peace, stability, and security of and to resolve the conflicts peacefully. But unfortunately, when we see in the backdrop, these are the structures which protect the current power politics in the world. We saw the emergence of United States. We saw the USSR becoming a big power. We saw China emerging as a power. Then they became the group P5 emerged, and then they ruled the world for their own purpose, and they are ruling it currently. And so Britishers failed at that time, and I don't think Britishers could have played a part. They could play a part at this time, but the way the international power corridors, especially the political governments at the international levels, have carved some words that we encourage India and Pakistan to settle the Kashmir dispute according to the wishes and aspirations of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. They don't go beyond that. They don't make India accountable for the violation of the UN resolutions. They don't make India accountable for the human rights
Absolutely.
violations they have committed. So we can't say that they can do anything more exclusively the British. Yes, our people do remind them. We have a lot of huge diaspora there. They do remind them time and again that Britishers were the part of the problem. So it is responsibility of the British people, the government
All
of
right, absolutely. Let
Great.
me quickly go to Parvez Sahib. He's raising his hand. Yes, Parvez Sahib.
I will make one more addition that when India landed in occupied Jammu and Kashmir on 27th of October, there was a strong resistance from the people of occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and there is a statement from Lord Mountbatten which is on the record that when the situation will be peaceful in Jammu and Kashmir, the people of Jammu and Kashmir will be given an opportunity to exercise their right to self-determination. At that time, the person who was dealing the partition whole process of partition, if he is on the record, and again, if the people of Jammu and Kashmir, the Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir signed the stand-still agreement. He signed it as a sovereign. It means that it was his sovereign status that he signed the stand-still agreement with the Pakistan, and against that agreement, the Indian forces landed their troops in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So when
Right.
Lord Mountbatten is on the record, it means that the commitment made by the then Governor General, they have to take honor of that, and that is the reason that people of Jammu and Kashmir are saying that it is
All
the
right, absolutely.
unfortunate.
And Parvez Sahib, I understand your point, but Farooq, I want to understand how history works and how crimes done decades ago actually can be compensated for, or there can be justice regarding that. Because, of course, there is all of this that we're talking about in terms of what happened prior to the partition and what was involved by the British rulers, and then, of course, what India has done since 1947. And then, of course, this is one black day that happened on the 27th of October, but there's another one that happened quite recently in August 2019, and we have the UN Security Council resolutions in place. But even if these violations or crimes have occurred, there's really nobody who's actually holding anyone accountable. So how will this talk even matter in terms of the context that we're saying that historically speaking, this is what was committed and this is what should have been done?
Right, Sana, and that is a very interesting question, because I was just thinking, looking at both your topics, back in 2016, when Donald Trump actually won, we heard people saying that perhaps we have walked into a dark timeline. So at this moment, when you look at both these topics, particularly what India has been doing to the people of Kashmir, you certainly are reminded that we are in a black, you were talking about one black day and another one as well. But there seems to be a black timeline where people keep on suffering. This black day that we are observing, day after tomorrow, is 75 years old. But since then, India has been actually going back on its words repeatedly. First, it was India's Prime Minister that went to the UN and promised a plebiscite. And it was India then kept on saying that it is a bilateral matter because of Shimla, and now it somehow magically has become their toot ang, their integral part, and that is not all. After that, we have seen so many dark days. When Burhan Wani was assassinated, at that time we thought that it was a black day, because a person who did not fight, who was actually doing podcast or videocast, vlogs, was killed just because of that. Then we saw that pellet guns were used, and women were, kids were blinded. We thought that the world is going to come into action. Did not happen. Then after that, we saw that Kashmir's identity, because of the Article 370, has been taken away. Because of Article 35A, they have also removed their right to their own land, and now because of their domicile law, they can settle anybody over there. So this doesn't seem to end. The world might be able to take notice once after ages, but at this moment, people are suffering, and we are talking about people whose, sorry, Faisal, you want to actually cut in and you want to
No, I was just clearing
I
my
thought
throat.
that you were uncomfortable. So, okay, this is what I keep on saying. A son is martyred today. He saw his father being martyred on the same spot. His father, also saw his father actually being assassinated in the same place. So this is the horrible kind of worldview that astonishes me. India or Indian government today keeps on talking about Hindu Raj or Hindu Rashtra. So let me remind everybody that Hindutva conception of world is that not all human beings are equal because of monism. So Kashmiri seem to be even inferior to the Dalits, and this is what is going on. We can keep on pushing this narrative and try to wake the world up, but India seems to be manipulating everything. And at this moment, my hats off to all Kashmiris who still are fighting in this darkness.
Absolutely.
Faisal, finally you get your
Exactly.
moment.
With your permission,
No, I thought that you are going to jump over me to just get to the audience.
No,
but
seriously,
please
I
go
was
ahead.
just clearing my throat
Yeah,
at that
please go
time.
ahead.
But now I would, of course, want to go towards Advocate Pervez. Sir, of course, Farooq has beautifully highlighted the points that are of huge concern. Obviously, he was talking about the brute force which is being used by Indian forces, Indian rogue forces within Kashmir, and now, of course, we can see that elsewhere in India against the Muslim especially. So, of course, he's talking about it. Plus, he has highlighted a few factors about the delimitation as well. Of course, we can see that this is quite confused India. Today's India is quite confused after the usage of brute force for decades. They could not, deter the people of Kashmir. So could we say that delimitation and, doctoring the demographics of Kashmir, is this all leading towards the fact that today's India has in the back of their heads, they have it that in future, of course, when things go out of control and we are at a verge of balkanization, then world might interfere and we have to go towards a plebiscite, and in that plebiscite we can have a bit of demographic sort of equality.
And
Is this what we're talking about?
And Parvez Sahab, could you also speak to two other points regarding human rights condition at this moment on ground, and the so-called secular leadership of Kashmir that used to talk about Kashmir as an independent identity? Have they actually started colluding with the Indian government now?
First of all, I will like to say about the demographic changes. India has just seen writing on the wall. They have used all brute force. This is the largest the state where you can see more than uh, 1 million troops is there, and you can see one army man standing against the 8 Kashmiris. But so far, India has failed to get the results what they desired, and now they have adopted a two-pronged strategy in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. One is to kill the people of Jammu and Kashmir, especially youth, eliminate them by all means, and second to make the demographic changes, because it will definitely give a favor to India if they succeed in implementing these demographic changes, and they succeed in implementing their domicile law. Definitely, their right to self-determination is given to the living people. A person who's alive can exercise right to self-determination. When you people, the key people, when people die, the right to self-determination die with them. And secondly, definitely India knows that Jammu and Kashmir is a Muslim majority state, and there is no option for them if tomorrow. This is the reason why India is afraid to give the people right to self-determination, because they are knowing that what is the popular sentiment in Jammu and Kashmir. You have seen when people are coming on the streets, whatever slogans they are giving, there is nobody, even a single person, who is except those Hindu goons who are brought by India from outside the Kashmir
Right,
and
absolutely.
under
And
the
Parvez Sahab, those demographic changes are going to change the sentiment eventually. Over time, perhaps the way 2019 seems to be forgotten, this would also be forgotten of who came here first and who was there before, and eventually it'll be a different territory.
no, there is a third perception. Let me make it clear. Definitely, India has issued 500,000 these domicile certificates, but there is a third perception still existing that people of Jammu and Kashmir are not accepting these people outsiders who are not from Jammu and Kashmir. That there is a
But
realization.
will
Those
their
people don't
acceptance matter?
they are living under the barrel of gun, under security cover. But however, this is agreed, and this is the major concern for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. If this struggle continues for 10 years, even 20 years, people will resist. But this one factor, the demographic change, is a serious concern, and especially the state of Pakistan should focus it, because it will make effect on the ground.
Yeah, Pakistan should focus on this matter, but how exactly? We have been talking about this for quite some time. Sana, with your permission, let me go to Vani Saab,
Yes,
because
he was
apart
raising his
from
hand as well.
Vani Saab, apart from domicile law, my question was also about state of affairs on ground and the so-called secular leadership of Kashmir. Do you think that at this moment they are failing, or they are in collusion with the Indian federal government, sir?
And Wani Saab, if you can, have my question as well, and that is related to the armed struggle. Obviously, both of you, Advocate Pervez, and you yourself, you are leaders from this resistance of Indian illegally occupied Kashmir. I know right now the armed struggle is not at full swing, but do you see it coming up? Obviously, in coming future, there will be an armed struggle. And when we talk about the armed struggle, we know that in other parts of the world, of course, if there is an armed struggle against a rogue nation like India, then everyone is helping them. Especially the West is helping, right now for the for the rights of Ukraine. If we talk about East Timor, there was help for the people's right to self-determination. If we talk about South Sudan, of course, there was help there as well. So do you seek help from other nations when it comes to armed struggle, genuine armed struggle of people of Kashmir against the tyranny of India, sir?
Human rights
See,
and
about
secular
we talk,
leadership first. Please
let
go
me
ahead.
talk to you first. That your honest struggle, what you say, it was never a choice of people of Kashmir. Whatever what we have done, it was thrusted upon us. After all, India, when they choked all the civil spaces of our youth, and then they started resisting against their occupation. So, though there is a legal way that we have the right to take the arms against the illegal occupation of India, and that is our right. That right can be exercised at any time. But having said that, are we getting the support from any other nation? That remains a big question for us. Will we go for that or not? But coming to the on-ground situation, what Mr. Patafi was telling about, you see, the on-ground situation is total. It's a horrendous situation. It's very a gloomy situation, which there we have seen how from last 3 years, especially each and every uh, civic space has been choked. And most recently, you have seen our leaders who died during their incarceration. They were not provided. Even in detention, they were not provided the proper medical facilities over there. So at each and every level, now the Indians government, but we were talking about when we talk about demographic changes, it is not only that they are issuing the certificates and all that. It's not only that. It's a whole set of things. India, on one hand, they want to change the political landscape of Kashmir. They want to change the religious landscape of Kashmir. They want to change the cultural landscape of Kashmir. On one hand, there's a cultural this time an aggression from Indian government. You see in the schools, in colleges, in other places, people are forced to sing the Vande Mataram and the Indian national anthem, which they never wanted to sing. They are forced to do. People are forced to host the Indian flags on their houses, which they never used to do. But there is a gun behind, and they are asked to do it. It is they want to rewrite the history of Kashmir. In order, they want that our newer generations should not know about the history of Kashmir. They have changed the language in Kashmir, and they are renaming each and every landmark in Kashmir after the Hindu fanatics or their leaders. That has been their main thrust. What they are doing at currently, they are also managing micromanagement on ground. They are doing in order to create wedge between different societies, between different groups, between different religions in Kashmir.
Right,
They try to
absolutely,
do.
Bani Saab.
They're
And
trying
I
to do it.
understand, of course, that all of these measures are taking place and this is what's happening. And there is a lot in terms of the kind of violations or the kind of disruptions that are created within the society and the kind of intolerance that now exists within India itself as well. And not only just, of course, in the illegally occupied territory. Parvez Saab, considering whatever is going on under the BJP government, the kind of impact that there is in terms of the ideology that is being shared, the way that dissenting voices are being shunned, the way that we see that the entire world, despite the fact that we understand quite evidently that India is no longer a democracy, it is still considered a democratic secular country, one of the biggest ones, and there's of course important interactions going on around the world. India still has the kind of clout that it needs to go ahead without any of such concerns of consequence. And then when the world is too busy with global concerns such as in the post-pandemic era with the Ukrainian crisis, food security issues, the climate change issues, economic woes, all of this combined, how do we make space for the people of Kashmir? Because it seems that there's too much noise around the world in the international community, and perhaps the voice of the Kashmiri people is just not going through. What can be done in terms of, for considering all of this context, for this to actually happen?
You just say that despite these all atrocities from the India, the people of Jammu and Kashmir are resisting. One thing I would like to make clear, that people of Jammu and Kashmir are not at war with India. they have they had a there is a resistance movement, because there is in nowhere in the world you will see that 200 or 300 freedom fighters can fight 1 million army. It is not possible anywhere in the world. There is no parity, but there is a resistance, and people of Jammu and Kashmir are every day and every moment showing this resistance. For just for an example, on 27, on the black day, there will be a complete strike in Jammu and Kashmir, and this will be a message to international community that people of Jammu and Kashmir are not with occupied Jammu and Kashmir. On the Friday prayers, they will come out and raise slogans. This is a mode of resistance. But the space, as Wani Saab has talked, it has been choked in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. There is a silence of a graveyard that people even cannot whisper, cannot talk about the freedom movement of Jammu and Kashmir. In this situation, the total shift has been made, and there is a situation that now it is the responsibility of the diaspora sitting in different countries, especially because people of Indian occupied Kashmir does not have much diaspora, because India never issued the passports to people of Jammu and
Absolutely,
Kashmir.
absolutely, and I
So
understand that, and of course,
the
indeed,
responsibility
unfortunate.
of diaspora, and
Yes,
especially the state of Pakistan, because we have to. It should be in our mind that sustenance of the movement is very important, and this
absolutely, and
movement
it is in our minds. Thank you very much, Advocate Parvez Ahmed and Altaf Hussain Wani, for joining us and being a part of this segment for us. Yes, Farooq, you wanted to add something?
Right. I just wanted to say, since we are talking about what Indian government, that is BJP government, that is what it is doing in Kashmir and what it is doing to its own Muslim population as well, I wanted to actually draw your attention to a book that I just finished. That is Said Naqvi's, being the other, the Muslim in India. And that book actually, I never, I've interacted with Sayyid Naqvi Saab, never found him very impressive when it came to India-Pakistan relationship. But this book actually documents how the entirety of Indian politics has been shaped by Hindutva. And Hindutva that was actually brought up not by BJP, but basically it was done by, Congress party. And there has been a systematic dismantling of Muslim rights in India, particularly in Kashmir. And I think at this moment we can blame BJP the way we want, but it is India's politics, it's India's majority which wants this to happen. And that is a sad reflection on state of democracy in a country that calls itself the largest democracy in the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're going to, of course, now also be moving on to our next segment, which again calls for justice. And this is something that, of course, is needed in all parts of the world and in every incident as well. Unfortunately, the renowned journalist, Mr. Arshad Sharif, was killed by Kenyan police. And now, of course, the Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, has ordered a judicial commission to probe into this killing, and of course the Kenyan authorities are carrying out their own investigation as well, and both are in coordination in terms of what actually happened and who is responsible. Faisal, when we take a look at all of this, of course it's encouraging that very soon and very urgently these steps were taken in terms of the investigation in order to understand what has happened. And perhaps what is more encouraging is that the civil society, media community, and particularly the journalist community, as directed by the Islamabad High Court, is going to be taken into account when this commission actually goes into probing. How important do you think it is for this investigation to be carried out completely in terms of the kind of truth that we need, the kind of questions that need to be answered, and for these members to be actually part of this commission so that we can see that happen?
Sana, of course, it is very, very important because Arshad Sharif, he was not a national figure, he was an international figure. Right now, we know that the mightiest news outlets of the world, they have given him the front page. That means he is important for the journalist fraternity of the whole world. And right now, of course, all of the journalists of Pakistan, they are concerned about him, about the family, about whatever has happened to him, and they want to have the truth to go through, because obviously the way he was murdered in Kenya, and the way Kenyan police, is coming up with conflicting statements. They talk very different things to very different newspapers. So there is not a single sort of newspaper that is, writing as it is, and it is similar to the other ones. So to me, I think right now the probe, as we talked about yesterday, that there must be a probe, and that should be non-biased, and that should be conducted by very professionals. And of course we know that Prime Minister of Pakistan, he has ordered a judicial commission to obviously probe it, and of course it is going to be bring in results in front of us, and that's what we are waiting for, because we want the truth about Arshad Sharif, the way he's murdered there. There are so many questions. The way Kenyan police only shoots on the side of the vehicle where he was sitting and not on the other side. It's not that I wanted them to shoot the other side as well, the driver's side as well, but I'm trying to say there were 9 bullets fired on that vehicle, and all of them, they were pointed towards where Arshad Sharif was sitting. So, and yesterday we mentioned, and once again I'll mention it, the vehicle he was sitting in, normally it never gets shot in by the Nairobi police or by Kenyan police for certain reasons. So there are so many question marks that need to be probed, and I think it is a very good decision to form that judicial commission. It is very important right now, because we know that even on social media, the kind of theories people are coming up with, they are entirely baseless. They are entirely not based upon the truth. So in this all investigation, everything, the truth should be brought forward, so that all of these speculations can be disnegated.
Absolutely, and that of course is what we're hoping for. But Farooq, unfortunately, when we see such incidents, we hope that everybody is on the same page in terms of what needs to happen and in terms of what needs to be carried out. But as with other incidents within our country, unfortunately, perhaps this has also become a source of politicization as well. How are we able to distinguish between what really is a matter of concern at the moment and what shouldn't be made part of the political game that is unfortunately going on?
Right, Sana, and earlier it was said that he is an international figure. I'm a very selfish man. I don't care whether he was international figure or not. He was a Pakistani, he was a friend, he was a colleague. So I want to get to the bottom of this matter. And since you asked this question about politicization, I think that the most cowardly thing anybody can do is that a human being has been killed, and we politicize or use their death to settle political scores. Right? Having said that, let me also remind you, yesterday when we were talking about this, I pointed out that there are many moving parts. Kenya is one aspect of it. There is one more, that is, why did he have to leave the country? And then the question about his stay in UAE, and why was he expelled from there? Why did he feel compelled to leave that place as well? So I'm glad that yesterday we were saying that a high-powered investigation should take place, and today not only Prime Minister actually spoke at length about this, but we also heard DG ISPR actually talking about this, and he Pakistan Army wrote a letter as well to the PM to investigate this and to actually form a high level commission, and that is heartening, because I tell you what is happening.
Right. Can I just get a clarification? Will the Judicial Commission also be probing the other aspects that you highlighted, or just the killing?
Of course, all three of these. Even ISPR actually, DG ISPR mentioned this. Why did he feel compelled to leave Pakistan? Who actually pressured him to leave? And then why did he actually, other places as well, he kept on moving. And I think that is important, because in our country, everything by default is attributed to certain powers, certain agencies, institutions. And the biggest problem is there has been, because Pakistan is a bustling country, 220 million, and there are many power centers now, especially the moneyed classes, people who might have to settle their own scores, right? So in the past as well, a lot of things have been attributed to certain institutions. In the end, you find out that they were not culpable. There were other individuals who were involved. So it is very important to actually clarify all of this. And then, of course, there was another demand that whosoever is spreading these rumors or negative, speculations should also be apprehended. Not apprehended as in arraigned and taken to court, but at least some action should be taken against them. I think that this is correct. This country has seen polarization to the breaking point. I think we cannot afford that. And honestly, for God's sake, stop using people, good people who have been slain for political advantage.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we really hope that that is what we are going to gain from this Judicial Commission. It is encouraging to see that this has happened, and we hope that we will get justice very soon. And so, of course, will the family of Mr. Arshad Sharif. Thank you very much, Farooq and Raja Faisal, for joining us and being a part of the debate. We'll see you all tomorrow.